So, as we begin, I will just share a few opening ideas. One is that the concept of ritual is vast, it's huge. It encompasses so many modes and ways of being in relationship with spirit, being in spiritual practice, being in the process of your life. And there are probably a lot of rituals that you are already engaged in that you don't consider to be rituals, but that you could deepen to start to, as Savannah say, like, bring in the protection of spirit, or as Danielle says, like deepen the ongoing relationship with spirit. And, you can start to find the places where it's already there in your life and deepen it. And then you can also start to learn new practices. So another thing I want to say is that the 3 points that I offered as a descriptor for this workshop were how to build an altar, how to craft a ritual, and how to tend a prayer. And just like ritual is a vast and dynamic subject that you can spend your entire life devoted to studying, exploring, and cultivating, all 3 of these things are as well. So what I wanted to actually do in my semi-Zoom illiterate learning curve is show you some photos of altars, and then we're going to discuss a little bit the concept of altar, and then we're going to talk a little bit about ritual, and I'm going to share with you releasing ritual that is a pretty common practice that I do on a regular basis to like let go of shit that's clogging the pipes in my life. And then we're going to talk about how to tend a prayer. So essentially, when you endeavor into ritual, you are asking spirit to lend a deeper attention to something that matters to you, right? This is a very basic way to conceptualize ritual. And when you do that, it's best to respect spirit's attention. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to say like, hey, help me out here, once spirit comes and helps you out, you say, okay, thank you. And then you take care of that extra energy that spirit gave to you. And one thing I do want to say is like, there's no fixed way that this looks. There's no right or wrong way that this necessarily looks. I don't come from a lineage. I'm just going to share with you what I've cultivated over my own time in this practice. I'm naturally mystical. I have ancient roots, indigenous roots in the Druidic tradition, even though my family lines were as shattered as any other of the European diaspora after the Inquisition. But my ancient roots are Druidic, and my cultivation you could call pagan animism. I'm an earth woman. I relate to life as the body of the divine, and I relate to life as a sacred process, an ongoing sacred process that is reciprocal and relational the deeper I stay in relationship with it. Are you following me so far? Is this all making sense? Okay, excellent. So I'm going to give you something to chuckle about as I learn.
All right, Marisha, could I ask you a question?
Yes.
How did you learn that your roots so far back are Druidic? How did you connect to that ancestral lineage?
Imaginally first. As I went through my spiritual process, in the course of my life, I tried everything on. I tried the Eastern things, I tried the Christian things, I tried the yogic tradition. I tried all of these different things. And then I started to ask, what is my natural way of relating to spirit? And my natural way of relating to spirit is to just be in deep communion with the subtleties of life. And when I connect to like what's a materialized mode of that feels most resonant, when I encountered the Wiccan tradition, I was like, that's close. But then when I encountered the Druidic tradition, I was like, that's really close. So I can't say that I have a straight line from my body back to a body that lived in that time and space. I can say that I have a straight imaginal resonance with that. And the bit that I do know about my ancestry, which is minimal because I don't know my father at all, and my matrilineage is pretty shattered from lots of different things. But the bit that I do know about it is that I do come from Western Europe. So to connect with, the traditions of Avalon and the rituals of the Tour and the Druidic priestess lineage, it's like that feels as close to true and familiar in my system as I have ever felt anything. So I have a deep love for it. And I've never seen anything in that tradition that I'm like, that doesn't feel right. I've seen things that I'm like, well, I'm not necessarily taking that piece on, but I get it. I get how it fits. Yeah, it's just what I have kind of uncovered in my consistent explorations of what feels true for me in the course of my life and in the course of the cultivation of my relationship with spirit.
Thank you so much. One of the things I forgot to say is that I would like to learn ritual partly to do ancestral work. So it's really helpful to hear you describe your process. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, and at any point in time, please, I love questions. So go ahead, and we're going to do a lot of question and answer in this process. And if you need any clarification or want to ask a question, go ahead.
Yeah, that was a very powerful share. Thank you for that. Thanks for that question, Rachel. And thank you for going deeper into that, Maitreya. That sounds like a whole workshop. So
it is a big ass workshop. So welcome to my screen. Don't look too deeply, you'll get lost. But here, let me show you some things. So first I want to just show you some altars. So the concept of altar, like I say, is a huge thing. The way I conceptualize an altar is that it is a place to carve out a space for the entrance of holy feeling into your life or into a moment. I have an altar that is the centerpiece of my house, and it is the place that I spend a massive amount of time. An altar does not need to be a constructed thing. Your altar can be a tree, a particular tree, or a particular tree in a given moment. But for the sake of this, we'll think about how do you build an altar as a specific place in space-time. And let me find mine real quick. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. This is it. Okay. So right here, if you can see this, this is a photograph of my altar. Everything on this altar, I have either found or been given. There are a few things like this stone and this stone I bought. That stone right there I bought. But for the most part, everything here I found or was given. So I have a living relationship with everything in this space. And the arrangement of everything in this space, for me, is welcoming the power that everything here emanates, welcoming that power to be a place for me to arrive to and to lend its attention to my life and to the process of my life and to my practices. So at this moment, right here is a little house. It's a little fairy house that a friend made for me because I am in an ongoing prayer for home. So this little house lives on the center of my altar. Here is one of my fetishes of the goddess, here is another. Because I am aligned with the feminine principle in creation, much more than the masculine. This is a piece of ocean jasper that was gifted to me a long time ago. To me, this represents the sea. All of these stones represent different energies. All of these stones represent different energies. They come from all over the world. They come from all different times in my life and all different stories. They all represent different things. These jars, they're full of flowers, spells, sand from arches, sand from the desert of Arizona, all kinds of things. All of these things that I have had a sacred relationship with at one time or another, and I brought into my life to help me along my path. This is a pair of deer antlers I found in the forest while I was out walking the mountains one day. They bring gentleness and love and alertness into my life. So everything here essentially represents something. And it doesn't just represent something, it is the presence of something in my life. And having it here in this way, organized in this way, is a way for me to go into deep relationship with those powers at any time. So this is my altar. Now, this here is a traditional mesa. The mesa is the altar space of an Andean culture whose name I can't remember right now, so please forgive me. But this is a mesa. There's a cross here that represents the cardinal directions, right? Here's the fire, here's the earth, here's the water, here's the air, here's the cosmos. This is how that particular culture makes its direct contact with the holy. Now, if you want to go all balls to the wall about it, you can be Catholic and give it all you got. So the Catholics, they build entire cathedrals and churches. They build enormous houses. Everything in a church has a ritual and sacred significance. Everything in here, including the geometry of the building. Everything about this is meant to welcome spirit in a very particular way into the space. And I recently came, I live like many people do in a kind of aversion to the Catholic and the Christian mode because of all of the damage that it has wrought in the world. But recently I went to a performance of In Mulieribus, which is a local choral group. And they do Renaissance era hymns and medieval hymns, which is a musical mode I studied as a child. And we went to this beautiful church in the center of Portland, and they sang in the altar area. And I had an opportunity to reconnect with the essential mysticism of that tradition that predates where people took it, if you know what I mean. It's like the underlying holiness that is that tradition that predates all of the shitty behavior that people have abused that tradition with. So I had an opportunity to go in and feel the way that this building and these paintings, all these halos on these paintings, these are all painted in gold. So the way that this building was constructed so that the presence of this music would suddenly bring this entire art piece of the cathedral to life. And like I said, carve out a space for the entrance of holy feeling, which is one of the primary purposes of an altar and of a ritual. So that's the Catholic. That's one of the Andean. That's mine. What else have we got here? This is Wiccan. So in the Wiccan tradition, which is not synonymous with Druidry, but they are similar. In the Wiccan tradition, Wiccan is a pagan animism. It is earth-based, and it has to do with the elements embodied in nature. So here on a Wiccan altar, you have their representations of the elements. The atame right here, the blade, represents the air, which is the power of mind. The wand right here represents the fire and being able to hold and direct fire as the power of intent. This is the pentacle that represents the earth. These are vessels. This is specifically a chalice. These are vessels for water. Here you have more fire. Here you have sense, because involving the senses in ritual is part of how you evoke holy feeling and make contact with the numinous. Okay, so this is the Wiccan altar. And then there's one more. This is a daime altar. Daime is a Catholic Brazilian ayahuasca tradition. I don't know all of the significance of it, but when I was, excuse me, when I was looking for altars of different cultures, what struck me was that here we have the water, the earth. Here's a little bundle of what looks like maybe juniper branches, but I'm not sure. The water, the earth, the fire. And we don't see the presence of the air, but we have some of the elements. And then we have, daime is a Catholic Brazilian tradition, so we have the presence of the cross. And then we have the presence of the bottles of ayahuasca over here. And this down here is a manta. A manta is a cloth that Shipibo, usually grandmothers, will make. They embroider these. This is all hand stitching. So they go into their ayahuasca ceremonies. They drink the ayahuasca. They sit up and sing all night. And in the course of the ayahuasca ceremony, they see the songs. And in the morning, as they leave the ceremony, they go and they embroider these mantas. And every mark here, all of these little corners and shapes and everything, these all represent certain movements in the song. I was gifted to learn a little bit about this when I spent some time in Peru, and it's actually a really, really magical tradition. So the Shipibo are not Brazilian. The Shipibo are Peruvian, but this manta is here in the daime altar. So these are just some examples of altars to give you an idea of, like, an altar can be anything. It can be anything. What it needs to be more than anything is just a space to carve out a welcome for the arrival of holy feeling. And that can include anything that brings that feeling alive in you and brings you into the space of being beyond the daily mind and more connected to the liminal and the numinous and the mysterious. Okay. So, does anybody have any questions or reflections about that? Erica, are you raising your hand?
Yeah. I find that my altar is always changing and moving, depending. So because I work with plant medicines, I usually draw a mandala after every ceremony. And sometimes the mandala that I have drawn, I work with that on my altar. And then at some point, it's just like, okay, it's finished, and I change it up and, it becomes new again. So the question that I have is, this altar, is it meant to be changed all the time, or do you have it static, or do you just add things to it, or well, if you get me.
I do. Yeah. I would say that whatever is there in your heart and soul, if you're not actually following a fixed traditions have their ways. Like a Hindu altar is a very specific thing, and you relate to it in a very specific way and no other way, because they believe that this is how it works. This is how you relate to spirit, and that's all there is to it. And you don't deviate. You don't do anything different. You don't get creative with it. You just do this particular thing in this particular order. And that's how you make these particular petitions to spirit, and you get spirit to get into your process. But when we're coming from the within, like you're coming from the within, and what I've seen of your teachings is that you are teaching people to reconnect with their inner authority in a way that brings them into deep relationship with the sacred so that they have more power in their life. This is going to be true for you as well in the tending of your own altar. If this practice of yours of drawing these mandalas and then working with these mandalas for as long as they're really alive in your heart and energetically alive in your space, if that draws you into deeper relationship with the mystery and the numinous and the divine, then go with that. The one thing I will say is that if you begin a prayer, it is important to bring it all the way to a clear fulfillment, which is directed by spirit and your inner knowing. But as one spiritual teacher said something that I really appreciate once. He said, well, if you haven't started yet, it's best not to start. And he was talking about getting on the spiritual path. If you haven't started yet, it's best not to start. Because he was talking about the rigors of the spiritual path, what it demands from you and how it can turn your life inside out. But then he said, but if you have started, you have to finish. So if you haven't started yet, it's best not to start. But if you have started, you have to finish. And with ritual, it's the same thing. And, I wouldn't say that working at the levels or from the places that any of us are working on, that anything, overtly negative or catastrophic would happen if we waggled out on a prayer and didn't go there. It just is essentially, in my belief, in my relationship with spirit, it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to say to anyone or anything, but especially to the mystery and the spirit, hey, pay attention to me, come do my thing, and then just flake out, So whatever the mantra process is for you, or mandala, whatever the mandala process is for you, I would say just learn to lean into it, learn to listen to it, and learn to be guided by it to such a degree that you can follow it all the way to its fulfillment. And when that fulfillment is. I find for myself that there's a feeling in my body. There's a really distinct and clear feeling in my body when a prayer or a ritual or some kind of process is done. And then I mark that process. I don't know what you do with your mandalas when you're done with them, but maybe put them in a special box or burn them or bury them. Or
no, I can't burn them.
Okay. Or
because I might come back to it, So this is one of them that I had,
Okay.
And it was around deepening into my sexual energy. At the first when I drew it, it was oh my God, it's so edgy and spiky and dark. But as I began working with it, I'm just okay, I see where this is going,
Yeah.
And then at some point I've reached a level where I said, okay, I understand where this is going. So I'm going to continue on that. So I'm not dismissing it. However, I've added another layer, which is a bit different, a bit softer. Yet I feel that this still kind of continues, but with a new energy into it, so.
Okay, then yeah. In that way, I would just say then have some special place to keep them.
Yeah, at the moment it's not a special place for him.
Yeah,
Thank you.
just like, yeah, make some special place to keep them. Like one of the most important things is just like make it sacred the whole way through. And sacred isn't like, we have a lot of ideas about what sacred is, but it just means like intentional, reverential, honoring. Make it sacred the whole way through. Like if you're going to keep them in a special place. Does anybody else have any questions?
So, say for example, I often say a prayer before I start my work. I work with people like that. The work we do together should be for my highest healing good and their highest healing good and the highest healing good of the world. So would that be something that needs to come to completion? Like when I finish the work, I say thank you for, would that be an example? Like just to say thank you at the end?
Yes, I would
Yeah.
say yes.
Yeah.
In the majority of ritual traditions, if you invite spirit into your space, you have to be clear about closing the space and letting spirit go about its business. So in the course of my own prayers and rituals, or scratch that, you could look at it like you don't leave the door open when you go to sleep, right? Because who knows what's going to come in. And essentially in a ritual space, you're opening a space for the arrival of spirit, for the arrival of extra energies. And you want to be clear at first about what energies you're inviting in. You're not inviting in just anybody, you're inviting in beneficial energies, right? And you want to be clear when the energies can go home and the space is closed. Like the welcome is complete. So yeah, you can be just as simple, like at the beginning of a session, you can say like, thank you, Mystery, for leaning in and offering your support to this process. And then at the end of the session, you can say even the same thing. Thank you, Spirit, for leaning in and offering your support to this process. This process is complete. Blessings on your way. Right? Simple, but clean and clear. Karma. I love your hat. So great.
Thanks. You spiced it up today with a little scarf.
Yeah, that's what I love about it.
Thanks. I think that I want to say I can't necessarily remember with a whole lot of clarity, but I just have this feeling like I have attempted or I've started many rituals without finishing them as sort of an experiment. And it's actually something that I have wondered about since learning about closing, where I wonder, I kind of look back in a sort of non-specific way, like wondering about those rituals that I kind of left just open and kind of dangling a little bit. And I have this question of, is there anything that I can do to like, I don't know, be like, do something to honor that? The only way that I've been able to think of doing that is just setting the intention for starting to do that in the future. But then I just still have this question of, is there a way that I can close those rituals that I never closed, even if, and especially if I don't even remember fully what they were?
I would do that personally through a prayer process. I would go to my altar or to some contained space. I would cast my circle, and this is what I'm going to tell you all about in the next part, but I would cast my circle. I would call the energies and I would state my intention. I would say, I come to you today, you know, something along the lines of like, I'm here today to complete some things I haven't completed in the past. One of the things to remember about all sacred practice is that all of the things that we're doing, it's not our words that define the thing. It's not our actions that define the thing. Spirit looks into our heart and sees. So if you come into this space with the earnest intention to tidy up some messes that you may have left in the past, you come into that space and you say like, hey, I'm here to clean up my messes. These are the ones I remember. There are many that I don't. Will you help me to complete this in a good way? Just help me to complete this in a good way. You know, thank you, I love you, forgive me, I'm sorry. I didn't know at the time that this wasn't the best way to go about this, and excuse me for being in my learning process, and thank you for your grace, but will you help me just close these out and clean up this mess a bit, and from here on out I'll do my best to be more mindful with how I endeavor into these processes in the future. You know, however that looks for you. And I would personally make an offering of some kind. And you know, you can like go out in nature and like gather up a bunch of things like some moss and some leaves and some bark and some seeds and whatever, and like make them into a little beautiful bundle. Like get a big leaf to make them into a little beautiful bundle and put your love in here. Say thank you so much. Thank you for your help, and make a little offer. Put it on the altar. Thank you for your help. Will you please help me clean up this mess? And I'll do my best to be more mindful in the future. And then close that ritual. Close that ritual with some gratitude. And as you endeavor into your learning process, just do your best. Do your best. You know, Spirit knows your heart. Spirit's not going to be like, that bitch is a mess, you know? Spirit's just going to be like, well, that wasn't ideal, but it's not a problem. You know? This is essentially you're learning. You're learning. And it's fine to learn. It's fine to be in the learning process, and nobody starts knowing. Everybody starts through learning. So just go ahead and be learning. And just like you would ask any teacher, you know, if you didn't finish an assignment because you didn't know how, you can go back at some point and just be like, so yeah, I dropped the ball here because I didn't know what to do. Can you help me? And a good teacher will hopefully be like, sure, let's see what we can do here. Okay? Does that help?
Yeah, thank you. That's great.
Okay, great. All right, so we're moving on from the altar piece. We're moving into the ritual piece right now. And we're going to go through this. I'm going to share with you a little document I made. I'm going to send this document to all of you so that you'll have it after the fact, if it ever opens. There we go. So this is just an overview of how you can look into ritual, how you can. You know, ritual is the same as making an altar. It can look all kinds of ways. There's no one way. There's no right way. There are some ways that are going to be perhaps more effective than others, but there's no right or wrong way. The one thing I will say about ritual that is a right or wrong thing is that there are a few principles to follow here. The first is never attempt to affect anybody else's free will. In any magical or ritual or spiritual process, never make any attempt to affect anybody else's free will. On Valentine's Day, this is a really important thing to remember in terms of like love charms. You know, it's one thing to say like, I'm going to do a ritual to invite love into my life. It's like, great, do that. That's just like trying to clear the channels so that something becomes more possible. It's another thing altogether to be like, I want Tyler to love me. I'm going to do something to get Tyler to love me because that is an infringement upon Tyler's free will. And that's not appropriate. And that is going to backfire on you. And another thing about ritual is its intent ought to be for the greatest benefit of all, without affecting anybody's free will. Its intent ought to be for the greatest benefit of all. So there's a humility and there's a generosity there. And we can ask more about this as we go along, but I realize I'm going long. Okay, here we go. Now you can see this thing here. So here's a little overview. I'm going to send this to you so you have it and you can look at it yourself. It's just a little map of a way you can look at it. But one of the ways I look at cultivating ritual is here. You create a space. You create a space where you can drop into a deeper state of being and start to connect with the numinous, with the mystery. Then you set your sacred space. In some way, you denote the movement from daily mind to ritual mind, or from daily mind to sacred space. Hopefully your daily life is a sacred space, but you know what I mean, right? The like logistical, personality driven, up here, mind. You make a movement from that space to prayer space. Then you establish your intention. What are you there for? Why are you asking for Spirit's attention? What are you asking for help with? You speak your intentions into the circle. Then you raise power. In raising power, you are seeking to conjure and cultivate energy to feed into your intention. I'm sure there's heaps of ways to do this, but the very available ones to do are sing, dance, drum, rattle, make sounds, essentially move and increase energy. And in the case of the one thing I'm going to suggest here, you enact a symbolic process related to your intention, okay? Then you ground the power. Once you have raised the energy, and once you have directed that energy into your intention, then you ground it. You give it into the earth, you send it into the sky, you put your hands in water to let it go. In some ways, you release it into the keeping of the mystery. And then you close the circle. The same way that you opened the circle by inviting the spirits' attention, you close the circle. You thank the spirits for their intention. You say the ritual is done, and you let it go. Okay? So that's that. Now from here, did everybody have an opportunity to get a candle? Yes, am I having all? What's Nina? Where's Nina? I don't know. Nina, would you like to turn your camera on so I can see you? Is that possible?
Oh, hi.
Hey, great. Do you have a candle nearby?
I don't. I came late from work. I came very late. I apologize.
No problem, no problem. Do you have something to write on?
I don't have anything. I just
Great.
wanted to audit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. So let's just do a little process together, okay? So go ahead and have your candle in front of you and some way to light it. If you need a minute to go grab a lighter, that's fine. Does everybody have their candle and their lighter? not caramel. What is the scent of your candle, Danielle?
Vanilla, I think.
Vanilla. Okay, are we otherwise ready for this? Okay, I could just click off. I'm not tracking if I've got enough nods. Just raise your hand if you're ready to go. Great. Nina, you can just travel along imaginally. So imagine you have the candle, imagine you have the thing.
Is it okay if I keep my camera off? Or do you want it on?
Sure, that's fine. That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, so everybody go ahead and light your candle. And when it's lit, just raise your hand so I know it's ready. Great. Great. Okay. So now go ahead and close your eyes and take a nice long deep breath into the lower belly. As you are inhaling into the lower belly, let your awareness drop beneath the busyness of the mind and into the stillness in which your being exists. It may not be easy to reach in this moment, but just to the best of your abilities, let yourself drop beneath the busyness of the mind and into the stillness that is the fundamental nature of your being. Feel yourself as a body, alive in the body of the world. Feel the earth, that life inside of which your life unfolds. Feel the sky, the cosmos, that vastness inside of which all life unfolds. And feel your own heart. In this moment, I am going to gently invoke a circle for us. I'm going to call to the east and to the element of air. I am calling to the south and the element of fire. I am calling to the west and the element of water. I am calling to the north and the element of earth. I am calling to the cosmos, to the electric principle, what is sometimes called the masculine. I am calling to the earth, to the magnetic principle, to that which is known as the feminine. I am calling from the center, which is the event horizon between the eternal and the temporal. To all you who I have called, I send a welcome, a greeting, and a blessing. Please come close and lend your energy and lend your attention to our process here today. Thank you for your medicine. Thank you for your power. Thank you for your beauty. Please today create a sacred space for us into which only benevolent and beneficial energy is welcome. And in which to do a gentle process of letting go of one thing that occludes the radiance of our souls. Thank you, thank you, thank you for lending your energy and attention to us today. I pray you are well nourished by our process. So now each of you, my sisters, I invite you to write on your piece of paper one thing, one simple thing, not a big thing, just a simple thing that you would like to let go of today.
Should this be on a piece of paper by itself, or can I put it at the bottom of my notes here?
By itself. Thank you for clarifying. That's a great question. Just one thing. It can be one word. I am frequently writing the word resistance. Or you can phrase it, today, I surrender resistance. Or whatever it is. One thing. And you can go ahead and raise your hand when you let me know that that aspect of the process is done. Are we ready to proceed? Yes? Danielle, are you ready? Okay. So in this moment, you are all muted. Yes, okay. So in this moment, go ahead and in your own way, in your own words, in your own voice, in your own space, you can go ahead and ask Spirit to carry this energy from you in the most beautiful and life-giving way possible. Okay? And I'm just going to gently sing while you've done that. And then when you're done, you can go ahead and raise your hand again, okay? You understand? Okay, go ahead. Sunayawa sunara aya mana eya. Sunayawa sunara aya mana. Sunayawa sunara aya mana eya. Sunayawa sunara aya mana. Sunayawa huna e sanana e. Sunayawa kuna kaini namaha. Sunayawa huna e sanana e. Sunayawa kuna kaini. Sunayawa huna e. Sunayawa sunara aya mana eya. Sunayawa sunara aya mana e. Sunayawa sunara aya mana eya. Sunayawa sunara aya mana. Sunayawa huna e sanana e. Sunayawa kuna kaini namaha. Sunayawa huna e sanana e. Sunayawa kuna kaini. Sunayawa huna e. Sunayawa suna ane ana e na e na. Sunayawa Suna Anlea Nea Sunaya Wasuna Anlea Naena Ena Sunaya Wasuna Anlea Nea Sunaya Waguna He Sanna Sunaya Waguna Kairi Namaha Sunaya Waguna He Sanna Sunaya Waguna Kairi Sunaya Waguna He. Take a deep breath in. Is everybody done? Deep breath in. Exhale once out. Then we're going to Om 3 times to raise some power for your prayer. You can hold your paper in your hand to really pour that power right into there. So go ahead, take a nice long, slow, deep breath into the belly. Exhale once to release. Inhale deeply, slowly into the belly. And we'll exhale with an Om. Two more. One more. Go ahead and fold your hands around this piece of paper. Give thanks for the way this energy has supported you up until this moment. And with so much gratitude and compassion, say in whatever way is true for you, thank you for your service. You are free to go now. Perfect. I like what Heidi did. She rolled hers up into a little ball. If that feels authentic to you, you can do that as well. Thank you for your service. You are free to go now. Now, when we are complete with this, you are going to take this piece of paper and you are going to burn it. I didn't suggest we do this in this moment because we're all inside and you would have needed a little brazier for that. And that's a whole nother story. But what you're going to do afterwards is you're going to take this outside and burn it. But for now, you are putting this down symbolically. As you set it down, recognize that you are giving this prayer into the keeping of Spirit. So as you set it down, let Spirit have it. Trust Spirit to take care of the prayer. And let me know when that's done. You just raise your hand, let me know when that's done. Perfect, perfect. Great, great. Great, great, great. Okay, great. So now, we've grounded the power. We're going to close the circle. Okay? Ready? Okay, so the same way that we open the circle by inviting the elements, the directions, and the spirits to lean close, we're going to thank them for their attention. We're going to let them go. Okay? So go ahead. You can close your eyes. You can take a nice, long, slow, deep breath into the belly. I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to just close that prayer up, however is honest and true for you inside. And then I'm going to close the circle. Okay, are we ready? Okay. Yeah, hey, great holy life, great mystery. All my beloveds, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the gift of your attention in this moment. From the center within where all things meet, I release this circle. Honoring the holy Mama Gaia, the magnetic principle, the holy Pachatata, and the electric principle. Honoring the north and the earth, the west and the water, the south and the fire, the east and the air. Honoring all of you spirits who have lent your attention to this process today. I pray you are well fed by our way here today. I pray it is of benefit to all life, now and always, and in only the best ways. And this ritual is done. Yeah, you can brush yourself off. Bring yourself back to normal space. So there's the enactment of a tiny little ritual map. We have a few minutes for questions about that. If anybody has a question, you can unmute yourself and just go ahead and ask.
Should we blow out the candles now?
Go for it.
I'm going to run now, but I just wanted to say that it was a great privilege to hear you sing and to be able to hear all of that. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you for coming, Nina. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You too, everyone as well. Bye-bye.
Good night.
I have a question. I found it was interesting for me, just with this specific, the requesting spirit to support me letting go of something that's been in service to me, right? Like it's kept me safe or it's been in service at some point in my life. And then noticing a resistance to really releasing that and thinking about how spirit can feel into my heart. Like, oh, I feel like spirit would be able to know that there's a part of me that's like, wait, I don't want to give that up yet. Like that's really kept me safe, but I do want to give it away. Is there, my question is, a part of me knows that like releasing something is going to take time. Is there a certain, or maybe not a certain way, but is there recommendation that you've experienced that you can share around asking for spirit to just guide, or like I'm asking you to leave this space, right? Like I'm closing the circle, but I'm asking for your help. I'm asking for your support to help guide me in this. I ask for you to maybe show up in other ways and remind me, or is that selfish and greedy? Because as I'm saying it, I'm like, oh, it feels a little greedy to just like keep your eye on me. But I just noticed my own resistance to letting go of that piece of paper because I thought spirit could tell that I wasn't quite ready to let it go.
Yes, there's much here. This is a whole realm in itself, but this is the piece of tending the prayer. This is the piece of tending the prayer. So as a counselor, as a mentor, and as a teacher, you know, one of the things I've learned over the course of my time working with people, and one of the things that I have, of course, discovered in the course of my own work on myself, is that the big stuff doesn't let go easily, you know. And that's why in the course of this one, I'm like, don't start with necessarily the big stuff, you know. Right. Don't start with like, I want to let go of my judgment. It's like that's going to take some unraveling. and there's nothing wrong with that. That's not like an indication of having an aberrant consciousness or anything like that. That's just like, of course, the big stuff takes time. And spirit knows that. And I don't know if you come from a Catholic background or something, but you don't need to have any guilt about asking for spirit to lean in and support you. In the traditions that I have touched into most deeply, and especially the European traditions that I was speaking of in the beginning, there's a really clear understanding that spirit needs your invitation to help you, because this is a realm of free will, and spirit's not going to come and like fuck with your process past a certain point, because like you're in your evolutionary journey. That's yours. Like, I can help you if you welcome my help. I can't help you if you don't welcome my help. It's the same thing in being a teacher. Is like, I can't help students who don't actually open up to me, or students who resist me, or students who doubt me too much. It's like, I want a student to stay in their own power, but there has to be an invitation as well for me to be able to help. And so it's not greedy, it's not selfish, there's nothing wrong with it. And spirit can see that you don't necessarily want to let go of it. Spirit doesn't say like, look at her, she says she want to let go, but she doesn't. She's conflicted. That's not what spirit's doing. Spirit's like, I understand this. It's familiar, it's safe, it's known, it's a part of you. Yeah, that's going to take a minute. And if you welcome my help, I will help you to the best of my abilities in any given moment. So yeah, it's a process, and it's fine that there's hesitation and resistance, because in a releasing ceremony, like, one of the things you're doing is you're opening to the unknown in a very authentic way. Because especially with these pieces, like for me, to take out something like judgment, to take judgment out of my system is like, this has been a primary mode my whole life. I was conditioned this way, I was socialized this way, this was a primary factor in my entire childhood. Like, taking that out of my experience is like destabilizing, because I have to be in the awkwardness of learning a new way to be. And what I have come to in that is like, I am devoted to dissolving the prominence of this energy, because it doesn't serve me. Judgment doesn't serve me, discernment does. But I'm devoted to dissolving the prominence of judgment so that I can live a more joyful life. And I'm also okay with being awkward as that process unfolds. So then you're like, you're bridging, the psychology and the spirituality process. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Other question? Go ahead.
So the implicit question I was hearing from you, Heidi, and it's a question of my own too, is how can we open the door to receiving help from those spirits that want to help us? So allowing them in using our free will, while also respecting them in a way when we're asking for extended help. Is there a particular way that we need to close that process as well?
One of the things I think is most important is doing your work. This is what I've come to in medicine space, right? Like, I've done massive amounts of medicine, and it wasn't called medicine when I was young and I started, but now it's called medicine, and I do it in ceremonies and all sorts of stuff. And one of the things I learned really clearly in the course of that endeavor was that I go when it's time to go, and I don't go back until I've worked what was given me in the process that I went for. And with spirit, it's the same. And spirit, I personally don't find spirit to be punishing, I think it's just about effectiveness. Essentially, like, if you're not doing your part, then spirit can't help you. Because essentially, you can think of ritual, one of the things you're doing is inviting spirit to like innervate your actions and your activities and your endeavors. So it's not like spirit's going to come in and do it for you. It's that spirit is going to innervate and enliven and empower your own process. So you have to stay in your process. You have to stay in your work. You have to do your part. And then spirit is participating by empowering the work that you're doing. And in terms of closing it, I would say that when it's done. There's a knowing in here. There's a knowing in your deep self of when a process is done. And that you listen to that knowing. And one of the things also I would say is to learn to recognize what's happening in relation to a given prayer. So, as Westerners in particular, we're very addicted to the climax. And, we want the big bang, as it were. But if we celebrate the little victories along the way, and especially the ones that are slightly or very unusual, then we are honoring the fruition of the prayer. Good? Helpful? Great. One more question, anybody?
Yeah, maybe I missed it, but did we ground the energy in that process?
The grounding the energy, I didn't name it specifically. The grounding the energy was when we put the paper down.
Okay.
Yeah, that was what I meant when I said, take this paper and set it down in the way intentionally where you're giving it into spirit's keeping. That was the grounding part. And I apologize, I didn't bookmark that to be more clear. But yeah, that was the grounding aspect.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Going once, going twice, one more question. Okay, so tending the prayer, I'm just going to go to this quite quickly because we're almost at time. And I love that this went so fast. Tending the prayer from here on out, essentially the last thing that I said to Danielle is part of how you tend the prayer. Like I said, when we're done, after you're done, before you do anything else, I mean, you have a baby, so you've got more leeway than anybody else. But before you do anything else, I encourage you to just go outside, light this prayer on fire, and as it's burning, as this little piece of paper is burning, just say, thank you, I love you, blessings on your way. Some version of that. Thank you, I love you, blessings on your way. Thank you, I love you, blessings on your way. And as it's burning, imagine the smoke is like transmuting and carrying this energy out of your system to be transmuted back into pure energy for creation's purposes. And then one of the things to recognize is that you have made some space in your system. When you take something out, you've made some space, right? So go ahead and fill that space with a good thing, whatever that is for you. In this moment, you can do it like just do something to honor yourself in this moment, to bring some pleasure to yourself. And as you go forward with this prayer, you could do this every morning from here on out and start to notice when like little sprouts of this intention start to show up. You can, oh, sorry, I'm losing my coherence here. Track this prayer. You can revisit it every morning. Thank you, Spirit, for carrying this energy out of my system. I welcome the energy of joy in its place. And start to track that prayer. And also start to track like where you start to bring that energy back. Just notice where you start to bring that energy back. And once you notice it coming back, just be like, oh, hi, nice to see you again. But yeah, please go on your way. Your seat is filled with joy now. So essentially you just come back to it. You come back to it. You come back to it. In your morning rituals, in your night rituals, as you're brushing your teeth, as you're driving to wherever, in those moments when you have some space to let your mind be either roaming or you've come into your meditative practice, you just revisit the prayer and essentially check in, where am I right now? And just refluff the prayer in a way that says, thank you for carrying out of my system this energy, and thank you for bringing into my system this energy of joy.
So Maitreya, when you do that, like if you're just sort of talking to spirit as you're moving through the day, are you intentional about an element of opening and closing there, or is it just?
Oh, interesting. I would say it's fine to just like let yourself be in ongoing relationship with spirit. In those moments, I think that's really important to just, it's a way to re-anchor yourself into communion with the mystery, to just maintain an ongoing dialogue with spirit as if you are just talking with a friend, like you just texted your girl and was just like, oh, I just had this moment and I'm kind of and she's like, oh yeah, I remember the other day when you said da, and you're like, oh yeah, right, thank you, and then you get back. I think this is actually really important because we live such a spiritually dissociated life in the West in particular. I think it's really important to, when you're really going to get in there and do some work, like set the space, do the thing, open and close it, all the things, but live as if you are in deep relationship with spirit, because you are spirit. Life is spirit. That's it. That's all there is. So part of this coming home to ritual, coming home to spiritual practice, it's really coming home to our own true nature. Does that help? Okay, great. So we are at time here, my friends, and I want to thank you for coming and spending this 90 minutes with me. I am going to send you the little document I wrote, which is a little overview, a little ritual map, and you are welcome to ask me any questions that you want to about it. I'm also going to send you a link if you're interested in scheduling a consultation call about my mentoring work, Soul Power Mentoring, in which I help people connect with soul and earth as a way to cultivate power and purpose in their lives. And thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming today. You bring so much joy into my heart by showing up and sharing this time and space with me. I'm really grateful to meet all of you who are new to me, and I'm really grateful to see all of you who I know already. And I pray that this has brought something of benefit and nourishment into your life, and that you go forth into the world and share that nourishment with others. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are so welcome. Now remember, take those little papers out. Don't leave them laying around. Take those little papers out and burn them or bury them or whatever you're going to do with it, but finish the prayer. Okay? And do that today, tonight, right now. Ready?
Can I do it tomorrow morning?
No,
Today
I
morning?
wouldn't.
No.
I would just step outside and light it on fire right now.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All right, my friends. You ready? I'm going to close the meeting.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Thank you so much. Good night.